and the bulletin boards, oh heavens, that huge, that long, long bulletin board, and that was seasons. You couldn't do without seasonal stuff on that bulletin board.
Well, I like to decorate, and I like art. So I would like to put as much of their work as I could up, you know, on the bulletin boards and that, so that it would be, whether it be their art projects or whether it be work that we had worked on, a lot of that can be very, even math, you can have them do some neat math things that can be put up for them to see and, you know, to feel that it's them, it's their room.
Then you would have Thanksgiving decorations and Christmas decorations and snow decorations and St. Patrick's, Valentine's Day, and you needed to sort of fit that into what you were doing somehow or other, not just decorations. The artwork, sometimes you could hang it from the lights, and you wanted to make sure that nobody jumped up and pulled on them.
And I loved art, and I loved to display the children's artwork and to do things that were, you know, very creative.
And because you had art projects, a lot of times at the beginning of the year, to developing the fine motor, they had to cut on the line, so maybe it was even cutting out a pumpkin or cutting out something. The older kids from the 5th and 6th grade would just beg to come after school, that half hour, and trace around different things or do things for you. They just couldn't do enough. I always had all kinds of people coming and asking, what can we do for you today? So that was a big help, and it was teaching them a little, you know, they carried a little responsibility, and so they always did a good job of what they did. So.
Sure. During the school year, usually I had on a sports jacket, and I used to wear short-sleeve dress shirts and a tie, dress pants. When the weather was warm, I would have the same type of a shirt on, sometimes without a tie or a sports jacket, which was very different from when I first taught. When I first started teaching in Kenosha, then everything was suit and a white tie and a white shirt rather and tie, very different.
Yeah. But if you're talking 1969, you did not wear slacks to school. After a while, then it was okay to wear slacks to school. Just something, something like I've got on, really.
Oh, the dress has really changed. You would never, ever wear slacks. In fact, when we had playground duty, I mean, we were always dressed up in dresses and skirts and sweaters, but not, and I remember in the wintertime when it was really cold, I always brought a pair of knee socks with me, and I would put knee socks on over my nylons when I put my boots on, because it was so cold. And then you always wore coats. You bought coats that were long. They were your playground coat, you know, so that you'd be warm out there, because it's pretty windy out on the Grewenow playground with the way the L shape of the building, and it seems like that wind just swirls around there when it's cold.
The only thing good about recess, the little kids would come up to me, and in those days teachers didn't wear pantsuits, you know. You wore nylon stockings, and it was cold out there, and they'd hug around me and keep the wind off me. The little ones did that. That was the only thing good about recess. And in the spring and the fall, it was football and baseball. And I remember I used to pitch for them.
Oh yes, you had your assigned time for recess. And that was fun. Kids would try to beat me out to the ball field. They didn't often make it. Because of the long legs, I got going quite fast. And
one thing I always felt bad about at recess, you'd always see a couple kids who were left out of some of the, you know, the games. So I always try to make a point of going over and talking to them and getting them involved. And with the little ones, we used to play, you know, London Bridge is falling down. And sometimes we would do relays and different things like that.
there was an activity room. An activity room was built on each main room. And in there, oh, it was so much fun. You could work with the kids individually, and the ones out in the front would behave themselves and do their own work.
Multi-purpose room was just that. It was multi-purpose. You could sign up to have the stage if you had some kind of program. At noontime, it was used for lunch. The back part of the multi-purpose room was used for classroom when they didn't have enough room. It was used for an art room one time. I think maybe that was all the uses of it. But if you had art in there, everything had to be cleaned out or cleaned up so that they could put the tables down and then the kids could eat in there, and then it had to be all cleaned up again so that after lunch the art people could come back. So you had one group of students doing something on this side, and then there was a curtain that went along, and you had another group on the other side often. Then when they painted the classrooms, you had to move all your stuff down onto the stage, and you worked on the stage with your kids while they got the room painted. And so there was an art class on this side and a regular class on the stage. So it was multi-purpose.
Everything was pretty much self-contained in the library. Depending upon what we were studying in libraries, because there were times when it was more practical for me to go to the classroom and teach in a classroom rather than the library. But most of all that was done in the library. At different times, I arranged to have programs presented at our school. For example, we had Florence Perry Heidi a few times give a presentation. And then I have a relative who is a writer, and when he would be in this area, David Kurdian, he's a local Racine author, I would invite him to give a presentation. So things like this we did, you know, in the gymnasium.
Practice teachers.
Practice teacher.
Oh yeah. That was something else.
Yes, I had a lot of student teachers. Carthage had just started or been moved. I think they came from from somewhere else. And the first student teacher I had was from Carthage. And then it was very interesting because they're all very, I had some wonderful people that I worked with. And they were very enthused and wanted to, become teachers. That's why they were into it. And this is kind of like being a student teacher is you're on the last step to becoming, meeting your reality of what you want to do. And it was just very interesting. And then you'd have the college professor would come out and sit in the classroom and observe, and then you'd talk with them and meet with them. I think probably the hardest thing is evaluating them and then writing up the report. I had taken a class at Carthage one year during the summertime, and it was on doing, working with student teachers and evaluating them. And I think that class really helped me because it made you be very specific about what you write when you write up a recommendation for them. Whereas before it's kind of easy just to say, oh, they did a great job. Well, they did a great job doing what? So I think probably that helped me write better evaluations than I had previously when I thought I was doing a good job anyway. But to be really specific about what they actually did and how they went about doing it.